I want us to go to hard talk before marriage. As singles, before we get married, Mr. and Mrs. Njau, they will address that. We want to know what issues do we address? What hard talks? I mean, what is hard talk? What do we talk about? Karibu.
Thank you. We have notes.
You can trust them.
Okay, so let me just. There's a lot of things I think we had shared that we would want to share. We are the youngest in marriage, so we still remember the dating stuff a lot. I think the first thing that we had to say is that during dating or courtship stage, that's where you should have important conversations. But where do important conversations come from? They come from having a standard. So as an individual, you should have a standard. Mm-hmm. What do you want? What do you want your life to be like? What do you want your everything to be like? Because a relationship is just a continuation of who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. It's just that this is Priska, this is Rio, and now we are married. We are combining our two individuality. So I think we had said there's default standards as Christians. We know must be born again. And then there's also personal standards that you set for yourself. That this is what I want. I want a guy who's like this, who's understanding. And then you have to meet those standards yourself. So I think what I did when I was single for a very long time. I had done an exercise where I wrote a list of everything that I would want my husband to be like. And then I said, I'm going to become those things. Mm-hmm. So if I want someone who's born again, who is fire for Jesus, who's understanding, who communicates, who reads, who learns and grows, I became those things because you attract who you are. Yeah. I always tell people, stop wasting time and go for people who want other things in life. For you, if you want to be a career person, go for a career person. If you want to travel the world, please don't go for a person who wants to stay in Dar es Salaam alone. So you set those standards and then you meet them yourself. You want to add? And then do not lower your standards because you're in your late 20s and the Lord is not answering. Never do that because it's not a race towards marriage. If you go to marriage with the wrong person, it's even worse. Yes. I think I remember my friends used to tell me, Priska, he used to tell me that you have high standards. Where's Jared? My friends used to tell me that I have high standards. And I honestly used to think if God has to drop someone from America with the standards that I have, he'll have to do it. Or I am okay to be single. So I was not ready to lower what I wanted out of a relationship. Because remember, I was already becoming those things. So it was not unrealistic expectation. I was not demanding someone to be in mass. I was already working towards become those things. So why would I expect less of a partner? So yeah, I would not go below. If someone had to do and be in that journey with me, okay. So it was not unrealistic because I was already doing it. The way to know if your standards are unrealistic, you can't meet them. If you can't meet them, you are unrealistic. But if you're working towards them, you might not be perfect, the person might not be perfect, but you're working towards those standards, that life that you want, then you should not lower it because time is running, because everybody in your group is getting married. You should not be desperate. We have a Father who loves us, who provides for us, so you should not be desperate. I think that's we had shared about standards.
Yeah, and another thing about that is, we come across a lot of cases where, I think it was even mentioned in the poem, there is a lot of pressure going on, and a lot of people tend to attempted to lower their standards. You see, when you just do that, you miss your mark and you miss what could have happened for you. You know, that potential, whatever you're looking forward to. So I normally encourage people: do not lower your standards for no reason, for nothing. I mean, you first of all, you should become those standards, and you will get the, the same. You get the person that will do the same. Yeah. So, okay, just don't lower your standards. I will share some more. Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Okay, I think also we said you carry those standards now into your relationship. Now, building a strong relationship, first of all, it should be very clear at the very beginning that this is for marriage. As Christians, we don't date to have fun and see where it is going. We date, as Christians, we don't date to have fun and see where it is going. They do that in movies. As Christians, we don't do that. Kwamba, let's see where this is going. I think the first day we've been friends for a very long time, so I will not call that our first date. But the first day we had the conversation that we want to be more than friends. The first question I asked him was, have you pictured your whole life in it? And I'm there. So it was very clear at the very beginning that that's where we're heading. So you should have those standards also in your relationship. Now, you should have important conversation. We don't discuss what's your favorite color and what's your favorite movie. That's like for the first week when you're trying to break the ice. But a lot of times we are with people that they are courting towards marriage, but they don't know each other truly. So it's very important to have difficult conversations. Now, they are not comfortable. I personally don't like confrontation. My husband is better at that. But it's very important when you notice something, when you notice a red flag, you don't just run away. You have to sit down and address it. You have to say, let's talk. This is what I expected, but you're not showing this. How are we dealing with this? And what are we doing moving forward? So to talk about finances, to talk about what you want in terms of parenting, to talk about where you want to live. Maybe I told him very much, mina kam jini, bras. So where do you want to live? Parenting, what do you stand in terms of learning? What do you stand in terms of career? Do you want to do a business? Do you want to just be employed? In terms of church, I think we had a time where Pastor should not know about this. We had a time where we discussed after marriage, where are we going to worship? Are we staying here? Why? So for it's not like we dated you, Pastor. We just had to be sure. And we had our reason. So we stayed. We also had our reason why we're staying at King's Church. We don't believe life is automatic. We are very intentional about everything that we do. So it was like, why are we staying at King's Church? Yeah. Why here?
Not just going with the flow. Just
exactly.
Because everybody's doing it, then you just do it.
Yes. So why are we here? We have clear reasons why we're staying at King's Church. Why we're working where we're working. He's doing business. Where is he seeing with that? So dating time is the time to iron all these issues. How many children you want to have, when, I think we did a 5-year vision when we're dating of like where we see ourselves in 5 years in health, finance, spiritual, career, skills, parenting. What have I forgot?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, we have a list.
So basically, we discuss about everything and just everything, just to save time. Sorry, I wanted to add something on the conversations part where we really encourage that, and the way we're saying it, it's not like you should not just have it as a to-do item. Right? So we have it in our culture. You should ingrain it in your culture. So we have that culture. We're up to date. We have a lot of long conversations. We speak about everything in depth. And I'll tell you one advantage of that. I'll give you an example. As we started, when we were courting, I remember it was very early days of courtship. So I'm coming from a RC background. My parents, super Catholics, and going to tell them that maybe I'm having a marriage at King's Church, you know, it would have been a World War III, I'm telling you. So I brought it up as a conversation. I took her out and I mentioned it. Kwamba, there is this situation. If we are going to do this, then she's coming from familia kilokole. Kwa hiyo, just to see how it's going to be, anything that, and that was very early days of our courtship. We courted for 2 years. Yeah. So it helped when the time came. It is not an issue anymore. You understand? So it is not a news. It is not shocking, because we just, even if we didn't have a solution by then, you know what I mean? So you make the other person expectant of what is coming. And that helps a lot in so many things. As we're approaching our wedding, so should normally throw something like, in my wedding day, I want this and that, you know? So it is important, because if you're not in a position to provide that, or you think you cannot handle that, or you don't like that, at least you had time to think about it before it happened as a surprise. So you basically reduce a lot of chances of having, shock. That is a shock absorber. You know what I mean? You know, so you reduce surprises in your life, you know? So it's very, very important to have conversation, just anything. And it should be your culture. It's not something that you plan to do maybe end of the month or a certain setting. Just, it should be in your habits. Just throw out honest things, your mind, what you're thinking, what goes in your mind, whatever that is on your mind. Just communicate.
Thank you, Mr. Njau. If I'm to add there on a question, Priska, your wife, said that we spoke about many things, but then health being one of them, like health goals. So my health goals, I want us to, now that we are realistic, so mna plan kwamba tutakuwa healthy by 5 years from now, you should be healthy. So do you talk like, okay, if you have to eat healthy, if you have to do exercises, or what? Yeah. Is it such a thing? Lakini pia, or as you answer that, if I may ask as well, that kuna issue ya honesty. Now that we've brought transparency up, tuna past issues. Nina issues. Yani mtu unajua they have been through hell and high waters, and the Lord sustained them. How deep should I talk about it? I mean, how far is too far? Do I tell you about my past? Kwa sababu kuna past inaweza come up 10 years down the line, and you did not tell your spouse, and it could be a deal breaker. So tell us about transparency, and can that transparency go a little bit deeper? Squeeze tuna simu zina password 800. Now that is, any couple can have their liberty on whatever terms they have, but then talk to us about that on transparency.
So in our marriage, that's a policy. We have an honest policy. We are free to talk about, again, everything, even our past. But that, I think that depends, and it's unique across different couples. So I'm honest with my wife. One of the reasons, she's my wife, but also, which is very important, is I know my secrets, whatever that I'm going to tell her, it is safe with her. She can absorb it. I understand her mind. She will be listening to me, and I know for sure she has no intention of judging me. So we have created that atmosphere of trust, So I trust my secrets with her. I know she loves me to a point where she doesn't judge me. If there is anything we know for sure is for the better, it's like we're trying to work out something better for the marriage. Again, we are partners in this one. And I am ready. As I was marrying her, actually, a friend of ours told, you guys were married even before you got married in church. I know this is my responsibility, and I'm trying to, this is the model we have. As for us men, we're supposed to love our wives the way Jesus loved the church. Are we safe to tell Jesus our secrets? Are we, does Jesus bear every of our weaknesses? You know, is he capable of, you know, listening to every dark secret of ours without judging us, but rather for the intention of helping us out, encouraging us, molding us, you know, make us better day by day, you know? So that is my motto, and I'm trying to live by that every single day. So in return, my wife can feel that, can see I'm trying to create a safe environment for her so that we can be honest and remove the judgment part and, you know, any other negative thing about that, because I'm not a very secretive person, by the way. Sina kifua cha kutunza mavitu ya ajabu. Because kwa nini nijitese? Na vingine vinakuwa ni kama sumu, yani vinakuumiza peke yako, and now I have a partner. Again, that's a loss. You see? So whatever that is troubling me, whatever that is not, you know, not good to me, I speak it out. I tell her, oh, this is what is going on. We had sessions where we would talk about our past, but it's no pressure on that one. We have never pressured ourselves to speak about those. If you feel like talking about it, yeah, you can talk about it, and it's safe to talk about it. We pray that we don't have that judgmental mindset so that things may turn bad. So, yeah, it works for us.
Thank you.
To just give an example, because I'm the example in this relationship. When we were dating, we had a day where we shared about all our relationships from primary school. So we know all our relationships, all our crushes, all our exes, what worked and what didn't work. And I remember he asked me, like, why do we want to have this conversation? Mm-hmm. Is it to use it against each other, or is it to understand how we can help each other and love each other better and not repeat past us? And once we said, okay, the motive is to love each other better and know if this didn't work, you were hurt this way, how can we not go through the same path? And how can I understand this is how you process these kind of things? We had that conversation. So I think we did, of everyone we have dated, and then we randomly talk about people we had crushes on. So there's that on part of relationship, but also sometimes you also have trauma from family. Things you went through, your past, your family. I think I come from a past where my father was not there. So there's a way I would react to things, and he'll be like, why are you this way? So once I share that this is where I come from, this is how I come from, from a family where my mom runs everything. So it took us time for me to understand that I have to submit, because that's what I've seen. I'm a woman, I run everything. So once he understood that and we worked through that, it made sense, and it helped us love each other better. So it's not to judge or to use it against each other, but to understand how you can support and love each other better.
Thank you. That's powerful. That's powerful. So the motive is not to judge, not to use it against each other when now you have an issue or you are quarreling, because there are those days. Not to say, hey, ndo maana ekitoka kopo fulani. No. The motive is to just, yeah, I mean, we are real men. So, ndo maana. You know, there is Yeah, I'm told here that is just immaturity. So, in marriage, ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you, married is not for the immature. Married is for the matured, both mentally and spiritually. Hallelujah. Because marriage will test your maturity. Ndo maana some people get there and in 2 weeks they're out. Why? Because being 30 or 40 does not guarantee your maturity. Maturity has nothing to do with your age. You could be 40 and such a boy or a girl, and you could be 20 and so matured. So let us also, I love what Priska said, Mrs. Njau, that she set a standard and she started walking towards those standards. So let's not put unexpected, unrealistic expectations. Kutustesa watoto wanawake wenzetu jamani. Hallelujah. So
just one more thing I just wanted to add up on what she shared, Mrs. Njau.
yes.
I think it's very important, especially when you, as a couple, when you sit down and discuss some deep-seated issues that you think could shed some light on how you can move on as a couple. Because sometimes you might find yourself in the marriage and you are facing some issues thrown at you. Kumbe ni maishu ambayo yamemuaffect mwenzio, like past 20 years, past 30 years, you know? So it's very important that you come clean and you know, at the end of the day, he or she is your partner. So whatever that deep-seated secret you think that this thing, if I say it, it might hurt him, or I don't know how I'll be viewed after this. The aftermath you are trying to imagine in your own mind is that the aftermath might be catastrophic. At the end of the day, you have to sort these things out between yourselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. And before, one thing I want to say is this also keeps you safe from people coming to you telling you, I know your husband's ex, or I know your wife's ex. Unajua, sometimes these issues come because you two have not had a conversation. But when you have that liberty to talk about these issues, I think it's easier. Karibu, Mr. Anko.
Okay, thank you. To add up on that one, Priska explained about how when you have shared your past, one of you might have something that happened, like she said, she grew up in the family that the father was like absent, so there is something in her. You see, there is a way she will behave. When I was talking about waiting, you need to be ready to wait for your partner to heal.
Yes.
You need to be ready. You know, sometimes we had a privilege to help some of the guys who were going to get married when they're in the courtship. And sometimes they just bring some accusations. They just come like, you know, she said like this. She told me this. She said that. And one day I was with my wife and the guy, we were talking with him, and you know what? I called her this morning and she said this and this. I just don't know what to do. I just asked him, do you love her? He said, yes, I love her, you know. So I just told my wife, you know, this guy loves each other. We don't. I just told him that you just give her time. She will just heal. You just give her time, because you know, I remember one day when I was with my wife, we went out somewhere and we were just talking and something happened. I said, you know what? Let us break up. You know, and I just yeah, that was before marriage. But because she already told me about her past, I knew about her. I knew what. I just looked on her and I just laughed and I say, that will never happen, you know. yeah, you know. But if you don't know what she went through, you can just say, what is this? Why should I go through every day? She say like this, every day she act like that. So you need to be ready to wait, to give time to your partner to heal from what she went through or what he went through in the past.
Thank you very much. Karibu.
Just a little bit on the hard conversations before marriage. Some people, especially Christians, there are times you become too spiritual, you forget the realities of life. Some people would not want to talk about some of the negative things that might happen while you're married. So they don't want to touch that kwa sababu wanajichuria. Tumo duniani na Yesu alisema duniani mtakuwa na dhiki. Na ndio maana when you're making that vow, you're saying for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, Nobody gets into marriage expecting they're going to be sick, expecting they're going to be broke, expecting they're going to... nobody gets in there with that expectation. Of course, the plans God has for us are great. They're good there to give us a hope and a future. However, when life happens, what do you do? So those are very important conversations to have. Okay, we have waited for children. How long do we wait for children before we start maybe adopting? Or before we start trying IVF? Or before we start... Those are very important conversations. Kwa sababu there will be pressure from in-laws, there will be pressure from friends, there will be pressure from those that are around you. And nobody gets into marriage thinking that, you know what, I'm not going to have a child. You understand? Yes. Everybody gets in there expecting. You already have the picture. On the point that she said, I've already named our unborn children. However, when those unborn children become really unborn, what do you do? Are we sticking together? Okay, those children came, and then those children came with some permanent effects on your body, morphology. What happens? Do you stick with one another? Those are very crucial questions to ask one another. What if, God forbid, we become broke, as in broke, the broke call us broke? Let me tell you something, laugh all you want. We have seen that thing happening. Muulize Ayubu. Ayubu alilala akamka akasema kichwani kwake, he's having life with his family and his children. But there is a conversation happening in heaven. The devil is conversing with God, saying, you know what? He's acting the way he's acting because you have an edge around him. Remove it and let me show you what he can do. Now, when that edge is removed, what will you do? Or who will you be? Will you be Job's wife who will say, curse your God and die? Or will you stick with him and say, you know what, we're holding hands and we are praying together and this thing is going to lift off of our lives? Do you understand? Yes. That's why we're saying it's not for children, or this thing is not for children. Because life can happen. So put that in mind before you get married.
Thank you. That is such a sober talk right there. Is there anyone? Yes, Mr. Ndose.
Yeah. We've been married 10 years, but we're still learning, including from the 3 months old. So I hope you guys are taking this seriously. So one of the things that Mama Njau spoke about is being intentional. And I think it struck a couple of things in my head. I remember one of my former bosses, when he had joined the bank, I was with another bank then, we struck a conversation around marriage and whatnot. I was not married by then. So he said for him, I think he had prayed for 4 things, right? The first one was for the wife to be God-fearing. The second one would be for them to align in terms of thoughts, priority in life, etc. Because you don't want to, be yoked with someone who has a different perspective and principles about life and whatnot. And then the third thing, for him it was very particular. Given the kind of family that he was coming from, it was a well-knit family. He wanted someone who would not disrupt that. So, there are marriages where you go into and families fight, or they don't see eye to eye. It could be God's will for you to get married, but for him, he had prayed to God to try and avoid that. And then, the fourth thing is say for someone who's beautiful, So And then later on, obviously, he got married, and he said, the lady was God-fearing, and, they would, see eye to eye in terms of issues around life. And actually, he got married to someone who the family was family friends, right? So that really worked well for him. And he said, and she was beautiful. That's how he said it to me. Yeah, so I think that point around being intentional. But that is to say that much as you need to pray, there is the part that God will do in terms of directing you. Remember, at the end of the day, you make the decision. God will never force his will on you. You can go and review, I think it was Genesis 24, the story of Isaac and Rebekah, when Abraham was about to pass on, and then he called his senior servant to say that, please, the angel of the Lord will guide you. Go back to my country, get a wife for my son. So the servant obeyed, took almost an oath, and then as he was going, he was praying, believing the angel of the Lord to show him the right person. And I think he was very specific in terms of the person who would come to the well first and then give me water to drink and the camels, etc., etc. And that's precisely what had happened. And then he requested whether he could go to their home and sleep there. And when he got to their home, I think the father and the brother, they accommodated the guy and whatnot, narrated the whole story. Everybody was happy. So when it came to a time of leaving, he wanted to leave immediately with the lady. The family said, please, we need to spend about 10 days with her before she leaves. But he beseeched them and told them, please, can I leave now? You know what they said? It's fine, we are fine. Bring her. If she so desires, then you will go. Remember, it was already God's will established. But she had to utter, using her own mouth, that I desire, I am willing to go. So at the end of the day, you can't put the blame on, but God, you are the one who, told me to get married to this lady or to this guy, etc., etc. Because in our thinking, naturally, if you're to be a bit spiritual, if you take the issue of Adam and Eve pro forma today, many of us could simply say that was not the will of God, given what happened. But we know that it was the will of God for them to be together. So regardless of the issue that happened thereafter, it does not necessarily negate the fact that it was God's will for them to be married. But if you want to be too spiritual, you could say, no, this problem happened because it was not God's will for these people to be together. You get it? So at the end of the day, God will not force his will on you. You make the decision at the end of the day, irrespective of the God's will, even though we know that the God's will is the best. Yeah? Amen. So just that bit about being intentional, you sort of fuse it with the will of God. Yeah? Thanks.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. That was powerful. Being intentional.